The world is watching, eyes fixed on Ukraine as a new chapter seems poised to unfold. From bustling newsrooms in New York to quiet living rooms in Tokyo, people everywhere are glued to their screens, searching for signs of hope amid the uncertainty. The headlines are filled with cautious optimism, and yet beneath the surface, anxiety lingers. Whispers of peace in Ukraine are growing louder, echoing through city squares and across social media feeds. In Kyiv, crowds gather, listening intently to speeches that promise a brighter future. Symbols of unity and resilience are everywhere, as ordinary citizens dare to imagine an end to the violence that has shaped their lives for so long. After years of relentless conflict, a US-led diplomatic push has emerged, offering a glimmer of hope that the bloodshed might finally cease. High-level meetings are underway, with American and Ukrainian officials working late into the night, determined to find common ground. The stakes could not be higher. In front of the cameras, officials smile and shake hands, eager to project confidence and unity. They declare breakthroughs, assuring the world that progress is being made. The press conferences are filled with hopeful rhetoric, and for a moment, it almost feels real. But behind closed doors, the atmosphere is tense and uncertain. Negotiators grapple with complex issues, their faces etched with worry. The reality, far from the polished statements, is a web of competing interests and unresolved tensions. Deep disagreements persist, rooted in years of mistrust and the scars of past conflicts. The table is littered with documents, each one a reminder of the difficult history that cannot be erased overnight. Old wounds are slow to heal, and every word is weighed with caution. Ukrainian sources quietly warn that significant gaps remain on the most critical issues. Behind the scenes, advisors debate strategy, aware that the wrong move could jeopardize everything. The stakes are nothing less than the nation's future. These are not minor details. They are fundamental questions about Ukraine's sovereignty, its borders, and its right to self-determination. Every decision made in these rooms will shape the destiny of millions. The public story is one of progress and hope, but privately, officials acknowledge that painful compromises may still be required. The contrast between the optimistic headlines and the tense reality behind the scenes is stark. For Ukraine, the outcome is deeply personal, a matter of life, death, and the very essence of national identity. Families cling to hope, remembering those lost and praying for peace that lasts. For the United States, this is more than just another negotiation. It's a test of diplomatic power, a chance to shape the future of Europe, and a measure of America's commitment to its allies. As hopeful headlines circulate and the world dares to believe in peace, the real obstacles remain hidden in the details, waiting to be resolved or to resurface when least expected. In Washington, the peace talks are hailed as a diplomatic triumph in the making. The mood in the capital is one of cautious optimism, with officials eager to present the negotiations as a turning point, not just for Ukraine, but for the world. Behind closed doors, American leaders emphasize the historic nature of these talks, suggesting that a new era of stability could be within reach if all parties stay the course. President Trump and his team project strength, claiming tremendous progress toward ending the war. They speak of breakthroughs and unprecedented cooperation, highlighting their role as facilitators of peace. The administration is keen to show that American leadership is indispensable and that their efforts are moving the world closer to a resolution. This narrative is aimed at both global and domestic audiences, showcasing American leadership. The message is clear: the United States is not just participating, but leading the charge for peace. News outlets are briefed with carefully crafted statements, and every public appearance is designed to reinforce the image of a confident, capable America. Secretary of State Marco Rubio describes the negotiations as very positive, downplaying remaining disagreements. He assures reporters that the issues left on the table are minor, and that the spirit of cooperation is stronger than ever. Rubio's words are chosen to inspire hope, but also to manage expectations, hinting that while challenges remain, the path forward is clear. The U.S. frames obstacles as minor, building momentum and pressuring all parties to finalize the deal. American negotiators emphasize that the remaining hurdles are technicalities, not deal breakers, and that the world is watching for a breakthrough. This approach is designed to keep the process moving and to prevent any backsliding from the progress already made. A U.S. military envoy even claims Ukraine has agreed, with only minor details left. The envoy's statements are echoed in the press, reinforcing the idea that the finish line is in sight. This optimism is not just for show, it's a strategic move to encourage all sides to commit to the final steps. This public portrayal suggests the deal is nearly done, casting any objections as trivial. By framing dissent as insignificant, Washington hopes to create a sense of inevitability around the agreement, making it harder for any party to walk away without appearing unreasonable. The campaign is as much about shaping perception as it is about negotiation. Every press release, every televised statement is carefully calibrated to build public support and to reassure allies that the U.S. remains a steady hand in turbulent times. The administration knows that perception can be as powerful as policy in international affairs. Washington wants to be seen as the architect of peace. The administration is determined to cement its legacy as a force for stability, hoping that history will remember these talks as a testament to American resolve and diplomatic skill. The story being written is one of American heroism and decisive diplomacy. In the eyes of Washington, this is more than just a negotiation. It's a defining moment, a chance to demonstrate the enduring power of American leadership on the world stage. In Kyiv, the mood is far more cautious. Ukrainian officials dispute the American narrative of a nearly finished deal. While there's consensus on less controversial points, the core issues remain unresolved. Ukraine negotiates from lived experience, cities destroyed, lives lost. They refuse to be rushed into a deal that compromises security and sovereignty. For Ukraine, these talks are about survival, not just diplomacy. The government must answer to a public that has endured immense hardship. Kyiv's pushback is about national survival, not posturing. Their red lines are rooted in sacrifice and principle. The thorniest issue is territory. The U.S. proposal calls for Ukraine to surrender key areas in the Donbas, including the fortress belt. For Ukraine, this is not compromise. It's a forced surrender of land defended at great cost. Every inch is tied to the memory of fallen defenders. The idea of ceding territory is a bitter pill, raising the question, what was the fight for? The U.S. sees this as a necessary step to bring Russia to the table. For Ukraine, it's a strategic and emotional blow, weakening defenses and morale. International pressure clashes with domestic resistance. The issue of territory remains a gaping wound in the negotiations. No final decision has been reached. Another sticking point is Ukraine's military size. The U.S. proposal would cap Ukraine's armed forces, a key Russian demand. For Ukraine, limits on its military are deeply unsettling after years of fighting for survival. A strong army is their only real guarantee of security. Negotiations are ongoing, with Kyiv pushing for a larger force than the original cap. Ukraine argues that a weak army invites future aggression. The U.S. suggests security guarantees could replace a large military, but Kyiv is skeptical. For Ukraine, promises on paper can't replace boots on the ground. Until security is truly guaranteed, this issue remains unresolved. The most symbolic obstacle is Ukraine's relationship with NATO. The U.S. proposal demands Ukraine renounce its ambition to join the alliance, a core Russian demand. For Ukraine, this is unacceptable. As a sovereign nation, Ukraine insists on the right to choose its alliances. Renouncing NATO would give Russia a veto over Ukraine's foreign policy. NATO membership was seen as the ultimate security guarantee. To abandon it feels like surrendering a core part of Ukraine's identity. The U.S. frames this as a realistic concession, but for Kyiv, it's a red line. The issue is about both principle and security. As long as Washington insists and Kyiv refuses, this could derail the entire process. The NATO question remains a defining challenge. These issues, territory, military limits, NATO, are not just policy points, they're red lines drawn in blood. Tens of thousands of Ukrainians have died defending these principles. Surrendering land feels like betraying their sacrifice. Limiting the military is seen as surrendering the right to self-defense. Renouncing NATO is viewed as giving up on true sovereignty. These are the pillars of Ukraine's modern identity. For many, compromise on these points is unthinkable. The stakes are existential. The U.S. is orchestrating a complex diplomatic campaign. Geneva hosts the main talks, with Secretary Rubio meeting Ukrainian officials to discuss the peace proposal. Simultaneously, a U.S. envoy meets Russian officials in Abu Dhabi, focusing on security details. This two-track approach highlights the urgency and complexity of the negotiations. The U.S. acts as mediator, shuttling proposals between Kyiv and Moscow. Optimistic statements from Geneva aim to build global momentum. In Abu Dhabi, the US pressures Russia by suggesting Ukraine is already on board. The process is delicate, with each message tailored to its audience. The main parties are kept at arm's length as the US tries to broker a deal. The outcome remains uncertain. As of late November 2025, the path to peace in Ukraine is shrouded in uncertainty, with every step forward met by new and daunting challenges. The war has left deep scars on the land and its people, and the road ahead is anything but clear. Hopes for a swift resolution have faded, replaced by a sobering realization: peace, if it comes, will demand difficult choices and painful sacrifices from all sides. The obstacles are not minor, they're fundamental disagreements over land, sovereignty, and security. These are not just political disputes, but questions that cut to the heart of national identity and the future of the region. Each broken sign and battered border marker is a reminder of the high stakes and the deep divisions that remain unresolved. Behind closed doors, the US pressures Ukraine to accept painful compromises for the sake of ending the war. American officials argue that a negotiated settlement, even if imperfect, could spare countless lives and prevent further devastation. Yet, for Ukrainian leaders, every concession feels like a step away from the dreams of independence and security that fueled their resistance. One possible outcome is that Ukraine yields to international pressure, cedes territory, limits its military, and abandons its hopes of joining NATO in exchange for promises of peace and security guarantees. Such a deal would mark a dramatic shift in Ukraine's future, altering its borders and its alliances, and leaving many to wonder if true sovereignty can ever be restored. Such a deal would be celebrated in Washington and Moscow, hailed as a diplomatic breakthrough that ends the bloodshed. But for many Ukrainians, it would be a bitter pill to swallow, a compromise that feels more like a defeat than a victory, and one that could sow seeds of resentment for generations to come. Alternatively, Ukraine could hold firm, refusing to cross its red lines and risk a collapse of talks and renewed conflict. This path would mean continued hardship, uncertainty, and the possibility of even greater losses. Yet for some, standing strong is the only way to honor the sacrifices already made and to defend the nation's dignity. The stakes are enormous: peace with compromise, or continued war for principle. Each choice carries profound consequences, not just for Ukraine, but for the entire region. The contrast between destruction and peace is stark, and the cost of either path is measured in lives, hopes, and the future of a nation. The decisions made now will shape Ukraine and Europe for decades to come. The rebuilding of cities, the healing of communities, and the restoration of trust will depend on the choices of today's leaders and the resilience of the Ukrainian people. The world watches, hoping for peace but bracing for more conflict. As headlines flash across screens and anxious eyes turn toward Ukraine, the future remains unwritten, a story still unfolding, shaped by courage, compromise, and the enduring hope for a better tomorrow.